We're in this love together. Love that Al Jarreau song, but it made me think about this week's title and wrap up to our series. We're in this heaven together. That's right, you and me, in it together, in it to win it. So I wanted to share with you one of the things that I had shared on social media a while back about what heaven on earth means to you, what's in the way. And here's some of the things that community members shared and commented. They said heaven to them was fully being me, living authentically, being my true authentic self, wholeness of being without separation, time to spend with those I love, among strong women in peace and harmony, a sense of community, to love someone in your heart with complete abandon. Every answer spoke of authenticity, connection, relationship. This is, I believe, what all of us long for. And we are in this work together. There is no other possibility because here we are. You and I are not living on an island alone, in our own universe, on our own planet. We are truly in this together. This co-creation is always happening. And the beauty of this spiritual living work, the beauty of spiritual growth is consciously co-creating life together. So recognizing our inherent belonging is so fundamental to begin to make change in your life, in your relationships, in the world. And as I spoke about last week, having really profound sense of connection to your own divine nature and knowing the divine nature of the other. I wanted to remind you of the perennial wisdom statement that awakening as aliveness, awakening as your greater self, leads to the call of being a blessing. That is the natural consequence of spiritual growth and maturity. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of an ethic of love, and I want to share something that he said. Along the way of life, someone must have sense enough and morality enough to cut off the chain of hate. This can only be done by projecting the ethic of love to the center of our lives. Projecting the ethic of love. And I want to define ethic. It's a moral obligation or duty. Moral obligation or duty. So what does love require of you? What is the duty inherent in loving? Love as a verb. This is what I would consider the ethic of love. Or, as in perennial wisdom teaching from the River Foundation, there's a universal ethic that we become beholden to as we awaken, for us to not only be blessings, but to celebrate the unique diversity and uniqueness of all of life. Knowing justice for all beings, liberation for all beings. So this is a perennial wisdom teaching, again, going through all of humanity, faith traditions, indigenous wisdom teachings. Not new, not a new idea. But I think it's time you and I made it real, brought this idea into form, manifest reality, heaven on earth. So thinking about Martin Luther King Jr.'s statement that the only way to break the chain of hate is by projecting an ethic of love into the center of our lives, I want you and I to think about, okay, what is at the center of my life? If it's not love, what is at the center of your life? Is it worry? Disappointment? Stress? Frustration? Anger? Grief? Take a moment and really discern your answer to that question. Right now in your lived experience, what is central? What are you spending the majority of your thinking on? What are you spending the majority of your attention on? Yeah. But you get to change that. You get to center the ethic, the duty, the call of love to the center of your life. And what do you think would happen to your life if you did that? If love was the whole purpose, your number one why, the thing you gave your most attention to, how might your life be transformed when you center that? An even juicier question for me is, how does your world become transformed when you center love and the ethic of love, right? The action of love into the center of your life. Love being central to your attention, central to your life, the ethic of love, the universal ethic of justice and liberation, because, right, justice just simply means what love looks like in public. The world you want to be living in, the life you want to be living and experiencing is a result of this thing, is a result of making love the central force and focus of your life. The thing I would add to MLK's quote in these days, in these 2023 times, is we must have sense enough to cut off the chain of disconnection, isolation, and loneliness. One of the things I noticed when I was having this conversation on social media was that, the lament of folks feeling disconnected, the lament of folks feeling like they didn't have enough affirming relationships in their lives to help hold them in this work and hold them in knowing themselves as love. And, there is an epidemic globally of disconnection, isolation, and loneliness. So if you and I have sense enough to cut that off, sense enough to have the awareness of love, have the central focus of love, move us in loving action and intentional decision-making and some new choices that cultivate connection, like I spoke to earlier in this series. Because we are in this heaven together, my love. We are in this together. And there's a reason for that. There is a perfection in this shared experience, in our shared humanity, and our shared divinity. You and I are meant to do this together. You and I are meant to be connected. You and I are meant to love on each other. That is one of the great gifts of this life. So cutting off isolation, cutting off disconnection, no longer accepting that as a common experience feels really important in this modern time. Even though you and I right now are probably in completely different places. You may be watching this at a time that is might not even be 2023 when you watch this. But that does not mean you and I can't actively cultivate connection and community. We can make technology work for us rather than stay in the way. You and I don't have to hide behind screens. We can get on screens together to deepen our connection and relationship. It's one of my favorite things about technology right now, right? The tools you and I have at our fingertips can be used to create heaven on earth. They're not evil in and of themselves. It's what you and I do with them, right? It's not a good, bad situation. It's a situation where when love is central, and the ethic of love, the action of love, the duty of love is central, all things become tools for love. How exciting is that? How incredible is that? How powerful is that? You always have the option to be a power for good. Always. This power for good that you are is and will always be, has always been connected in community. Always been in relationship with others. Look around your life. What do you see? Who do you see? Your neighbors? Your family members? Your household members? The city that you are living in, the town, the whatever you are living in? When you allow yourself to see what actually is, that you, of course, are in connection and community. You are not isolated. That is actually not a true statement. Notice that you are surrounded by life, by creatures, by humans. And you get to be intentional about that. You get to be a power for good in connection to the reality of your community, wherever you are, with whatever means you have. One of the ways that you and I participate in this ethic of love is to understand ourselves as inherently connected and belonging to one another. And to do so in proximity to the humans, to the life, to the situations and circumstances right in front of you. You don't have to go searching. I hear people say all the time, what is mine to do? I don't know what to do about the state of affairs. What is mine? And what is yours is what's right in front of you. The grace of spirit, the grace of oneness is always offering you and I invitations into loving action, invitations into a greater experience of connection and belonging and wholeness. That invitation is given every breath, every day, without fail. But you and I have to be intentional about that. We have to open our eyes and our hearts and our minds to see the connection that is always happening. We have to give up the narrative that they are not my people, or they don't like me, or I'm awkward, or I'm an introvert, or whatever. Whatever is keeping you disconnected, possibly isolated and lonely. Give up the narrative, give up the story, get intentional about living the truth of who you are as a member of life with inherent belonging and inherent connection. Here's the other huge piece. You get to know yourself in your wholeness, in your depth, as source. Another word for God, right? So as you become more conscious and aware of your place in all of this as one of the emanations of source, then it becomes obvious that you're a source of service in your communities, in your relationships, in your circumstances, and what you are in proximity to right where you are. Of course you are. Of course you are a source, a resource to life itself. That is your nature. That is part of your wholeness. That is all of nature. Everyone has something to contribute, to offer, to resource back to life. So that's the practice this week. Our final C in the 5 C's is community. And very particularly sacred service to your community. And because this is your nature, I'm going to invite you to consider what sacred service looks like in your life. And I'm going to ask you a few questions to sit with. When you are rooted in the truth of your own sacred nature and the sacred nature of others and all of life, what do you feel drawn to do in service? What steps can you take to actualize this? What steps can you take? They don't have to be giant, grand, I'm running for city council steps. They might be. But what steps can you take to make it real, to put it into action? And share. I want you to share what you've learned about your call, about what you are in proximity to, what you are noticing in your community, your neighborhood. Share what you are learning and what you are called to do with other folks in community. You are not alone, my darling. We're in this heaven together. Okay, and for your courage challenge this week, daily intentional acts of kindness. So as you sit and ponder what maybe deeper service you want to get into in your community, in your neighborhood, in your community relationships, every day this week, I want you to just do some maybe random act of kindness. And it could be as small as eye contact, smile, and thank you to a cashier. It could be letting somebody in traffic. It could be offering a hug to someone you've not done that with before. It could be taking a special treat to your next door neighbor. Every day, a random act of kindness. You can do this. You are worthy, able. You have the power of the divine in you, as you, surrounding you, as your inherent belonging and connection to all of life. I love you so much. Blessings.